Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adedotun Bakare. I'll be speaking on the agony of infertility, treatment of infertile women in our local culture. It has been shown, different studies have shown that infertility affects millions of people globally, but cultural reasons vary. In many African societies, motherhood defines a woman. Some believe once you don't have a child, you are not a full woman. And it has caused a lot of emotional, social, and cultural challenges to the woman in particular. Unfortunately, a lot of women are unable to conceive immediately after their wedding or in the process of the relationship. However, we have different cultural perceptions of infertility. Some see it as failure, like a personal failure. Some often blame it on the women solely. For example, if they go for checkups, you'll see that most women actually go for checkups. It is in rare cases that you see an average man follow his wife for medical checkup because they believe most of the fault or the problem relies solely on the woman. Then that just goes to show that male infertility is rarely acknowledged. This has brought about social discrimination and stigmatization. A married woman that doesn't have a child at that point in time is constantly verbally abused and ridiculed, especially among the family members, be it the mother, the father, the in-laws, and they make it look like if you don't have a child for me or my child, you are going to get another wife. So they threaten her with polygamy. And also they exclude such women from social gatherings because they believe she's not a complete person. They also believe she's not worthy to be in that family. So most times she's so emotionally down that she can't even face the community gatherings. For example, in Yoruba land, after marriage, your in-laws expect you, the society expects you to conceive maybe within a year or two. In cases where fertility is delayed, you start hearing whispering, what is happening? People start asking you questions, what's the problem? And this is a very big issue because it actually distraughts the woman in question, and it has shown that the woman will be emotionally destabilized. We have different form of treatment. We have traditional treatment for infertility where people use herbal remedies and concoctions. We have spiritual consultations. For example, the herbal remedies, they are referred to Yalagbo or Ilewe Omo. That is the process where they use the natural herbs we have, the roots, the barks, the leaves of trees. They study the components. That is what they do. So they pick and pluck with fruits for people trying to conceive. We also have spiritual consultations where people go to our fathers, the clerics and the herbalists, the chief priests, just so they know what to do, the sacrifices to carry so they get pregnant and have their children. We have modern medical approaches. We have assisted reproductive technologies, which is also known as ART, amongst which is IVF, which is in vitro fertilization. That's fertilization outside the body, which is now implanted into the womb of the woman. There are cases where it is not successful. There are cases where it is. But of course, we know that is not a that is not a final step. That is not to say it is the surest way of conceiving. Then cultural resistance to unnatural methods. We know that some people don't believe in that. Some people believe if you are healthy, if you are a woman, some cultures they won't condone that. They believe it is wrong. So it has become a challenge for the woman trying to conceive. It has a lot of impact on the woman anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, which actually disrupts the hormonal system of the woman. And once the hormonal system is disrupted, there is no way such woman will be able to function and produce properly, because it affects the mental health. So how will somebody that is not hormonally imbalanced conceive? Because pregnancy has to do with hormones. So if the hormones is messed up, definitely fertility cannot take place. There is marital tension and domestic violence. The man gets upset, he beats her, he's frustrated from his family because they believe he has brought in Yoruba they call a woman, yes, a fellow man, they also call her Ako Ibepe. That's somebody that a footless tree. So that is evil. So we have so many things that brings about domestic violence. Domestic violence, the man continuously hits the woman because his friends would have been making jest of him that the man, that is your man in the house, Then pressure to accept polygamy or surrogacy. Surrogacy is also a method of artificial reproduction therapy. You understand? So some actually ask other women to help them carry their pregnancy to term. Then once they deliver, they get the child. Acceptance is not all that, but we have a lot of women, known people, having children, becoming mother through surrogacy and IVF. So I would also love to throw this question and this topic open to our erudite professors to help us shed light on infertility, the agony of a woman trying to conceive, what can be done and how we can all go about it. Thank you.
So the infertility you're talking about is the inability to conceive after about 1 year of inappropriate times and done without protection. That's 12 months for primary infertility. And the second aspect of it is when someone who has conceived before finds it difficult to conceive after about 6 months of trial without success. And infertility affects a great number of people within the reproductive age. And this has implications for human continuation. Because I link it to the problem of infertility linked to what has been described as the paradox of plenty amidst scarcity. In other words, infertility thrives where fertility rates are also high. When there's abundance, there is scarcity, bringing conflict, challenges, because you don't really see it. We look at the narrative of overpopulation, seem to be cloud of vision. We don't really see that infertility is on the increase. There is also uneven distribution of children. Maybe you see a man that's married to 4 wives, each one having 4 children, that's 16. Then you see one man, the wife, no issue. And we also believe in family continuation. So we tackle infertility, we have to understand where we are coming from, the kind of belief system that conditions how we approach this issue. For someone who doesn't believe in ancestral continuation or so, infertility is no problem. But we also look at in the Western world, we are talking about or childlessness. Childlessness is childlessness, whether male or female. But here, someone that has females, you see, male childlessness becomes what drives us to maybe either assisted reproduction, traditional one, or technologically assisted one. No matter how we look at it, this has an implication for human continuation. And the agony associated with infertility is also so much that it even leads to death. The definition of health as absence of, not just absence of women, but psychologically, the trauma they go to, the emotional trauma, should also be looked into, because you don't talk about the benefiting from the product of science and technology, but the access to assisted reproductive technology you're talking about is not easy. Okay, look at the people that are not able to afford 3 square meters a day. Can they afford IVF cycle treatment? So in that case, what happens? So that technology, there's no subsidization, government is not even intervening. So this has to be a public health care priority, whereby government should subsidize access to reproductive technologies. Because we're talking about the traditional method that they're discouraging because of obvious reasons. So if you don't patronize the traditional method, then the technological method or the Western method, we don't have access. What do we do? The people that don't have them, what do they do? Do they just be cast aside, and the world benefits of science and technology is enjoyed by only the rich, those who have the means? So that's even a deeper problem. But let us clearly understand why must we procreate first before we talk about effort to overcome infertility. And we also know that reproductive technologies or those assisted reproductive technologies treat desire, not disease. Some of them do not cure infertility. It only bypasses. It circumvents that infertility. Maybe someone has tuber blockage, you get that through surrogacy or IVF or acidic vaginal tract. So you use that, you bypass that to conceive. The desire is treated to have a child, but not the disease. The disease also remains. So these are the areas that the Red Cross can also cast light so that it gets eliminated.
I think one very important issue you mentioned is that of a policy, government policy, helping to direct public opinion. Yeah, the issue of infertility, if you go deep into your culture, or if we all go deep into our own various cultures, you discover that in their own time of our ancestors, they developed methods of dealing with it. And such method include surrogate mother. And so a woman, if proven to be infertile, she goes and marries a younger girl for the husband, or gets a younger sister. And so you have the big mother and the small mother, Nuku and Nenta. And usually you discover that the concept of adopting the mother and the child is brought in, not adopt the child and leave the mother. Then there's also this angle that I know when I started the research into Alpha Ifa conception of the human being. There are those who, by the study of, I don't know how I'll call it, but what word I'll use for it, but maybe later I'll research into that. The nature, the constitution, the psychical constitution of the human being. There are those whom, according to the Ifa study, who, yes, they have female body, but the energy controlling them is male. And there are those who, yes, have male body, but the energy controlling them is female. Now, the thing there is that according to this particular study, it's something gray. I've not gone into it, and I'm just letting you know about it. If a woman, all her biological organs are complete, she can give birth, but her energy is male, marries to a man whose energy is male, it will be difficult for them to conceive, except to go through other means. It does not mean that absolutely they will not conceive, but it will be difficult. And so there are rituals that are done for such people. Or another method they develop is they give the man permission, step out. The man steps out, and by their own means, this is the man's son. Then they now call the people of the woman and say, okay, our son has stepped out, and this is the result he brought. Let us see whether your own daughter too, if she steps out, what happens. So they give her the permission to step out. It does not mean she's divorced. She's not divorced, she's not separated, but they now say, go and they give her the permission to go out and try. And if she goes and she comes and she's pregnant and she goes through the process, they now say, okay, they now know where the problem comes. They will dissolve that marriage formally, and so that they get married, they remarry. They now know that the fault is not either the male or the female, but it's in the maybe that psychically they are not connected. So these are dimensions. Those are developments that I found in my study of Alpha. If I have not researched into it to begin to say, okay, I'm an authority in it. All right. Then there is also the question of the role of among the Yorubas of Yeye Osun, which we find in Oyakumeji, Igbago Olotun, Defafu Olotun, Ekun Omolonsun. So the Yeye Osun is known, apart from handling female matters, is also known to be the custodian of female fertility. And the process is that the woman with problem of infertility will have to have the properties of Osun in her house, and which usually is a Osun pot, the water, and then the water must be fresh water fetched from the stream. In our modern day, you can say fresh water fetched from the borehole, because the stream and the borehole are the same. The water is coming from the under, but the stream, the water is more filtered. So from a very good borehole, the very first fresh water you fetch from the between 4 to 5 a.m. You fill that pot, you make some prayers, and then the whole process is believed that the woman's inner organs are in that process, maybe go some readjustment or whatever. These are things we need to investigate. I'm just telling you, these are gray areas. And what I discovered with that is that they developed a method of dealing with such. In our contemporary world, we are caught in between, and we have not decided where to go. So individuals are left at the behest of the public, and that's what increases the trauma. Because in traditional times, yes, they had developed methods of solving the problem, especially when you discover, yes, the woman is infertile, but she is a woman that protects the house, the home, and she has brought much prosperity, so we can't lose such a woman. So they give her permission, go and bring somebody to help us. You get it? So I'm not saying that I'm not in traditional time to know what exactly, but they found certain solutions to the problem they had. But today, we are caught in between the blue sky and the blue sea. We are neither into our culture, and we have not mastered the Western one. So individuals are left at their own mercy to find their way. So government has no policy for it, and the cultures, the different cultures are not talking about it. Rather, the churches and the mosques have taken over, and they are not discussing these issues. What they are discussing is prosperity. They are not talking about human issues. So I think these are the various other complicated dimensions to the question of fertility or infertility. Usually in traditional times, before you marry, they will set you to go and investigate the family you want to marry into. Families that have problem of infertility are known, where the males are not virile. They tell you, this family, they are male, in so maybe generation, they will have problem of this thing. That it means that they know that in that family, their males send out their women to go and get pregnant elsewhere. That is why in the Igbo society, there is no bastard. If I marry a wife and somebody else impregnates my wife, the child belongs to me. Yes. So why was that? Say one. You get it? So why did they adopt that kind of culture, that mentality? It means that there was problem of male infertility or virility. The males who had that they were not could not father children, and so that was a method of making up for that. Now you could see that these are ways by which they sorted out their own problems, which today, because of conflict of culture and belief system, may not be wholly accepted. So these are the various dimensions you also explore, and how can we encourage government to look into this and harmonize both our traditional approach and the modern approach, and find a middle way such that this question of infertility will not tear homes apart. Rather, they will also help to make the home strong. Thank you.
I'll try to be very brief for want of time. The issue of infertility has been with human beings since evolution of Homo sapiens, so it's not new. And there has been said different cultures at different historical periods have developed methods of coping with it. The thing about reproduction is that inherent in the genetic makeup of organisms. Richard Dawkins, one of the best-known zoologists, argued in his book, The Selfish Gene, that if you look at organisms, the primary motivation is that the gene should replicate itself, which is why both sexual and asexual reproduction have evolved. And the title of that book, The Selfish Gene, can give you an indication of the main thrust of the need for organisms to pass on their genetic materials to their offspring. So inherent in living things is this need for reproduction. And human beings being very sophisticated with a battery of emotional, psychological, intellectual, and even moral dimensions with respect to reproduction. The issue becomes incredibly complex. But the point I want to make is that this notion that a marriage is incomplete without a child, I don't agree with it. It could have failed in that inherent need to reproduce. But there is more to marriage than just producing children. In fact, I am one of those who believe that the earth, even though abundant in resources, there is what I call the omega point the human population will reach. It now begins to have what is called in engineering the recursive effect, which was also hinted at by Thomas Malthus in his thesis on population. There's a level of population growth that it begins to have negative effect, not just on human beings and other living creatures, but on the planet itself. Because the resources of the earth are not infinite, no matter how you pretend about it. So people should begin to learn, because if you are part of those who do not really think that what made a marriage valid is just the factor of reproduction. Remember, producing children can be done outside wedlock. So to even now say or attach the validity or authenticity or the value of marriage to reproduction, for me, is an overkill. People should learn that indeed it is possible that you come to this life, live a full productive life without producing any child. You can even see other children as yours when you have what I call the cosmopolitan mentality, which was partially part of what we had in traditional Igbo society, that a child doesn't have to be your child if he is biologically or she is biologically related to you, which is why if you see a child misbehaving, you can discipline the child, and the parents then will come and thank you for doing this, because as they say, the child belongs to the whole family, to the whole village, to the whole clan, even though we know that there are biological parents of that very child. So this, what I may call the over-exaggeration of reproductive success in marriage, for me, I think it's the time we begin to take a second look at it. Another point is, you see, it also depends, which is an adjunct to what I said. It also depends on the individuals themselves, their understanding. I use myself as an example. when I got married to my wife, we waited until 7 years before she had a child. Before she had a child, yes. For those 7 years, I did not bother her for 1 second. Because I didn't bother. Even people, I remember a colleague who jocularly made some snide remarks in my face. It didn't bother me because it was my own. My attitude to it, if it comes, fine. If it doesn't, fine. And funny, it was when she was going for medical checkup to go to law school that my friend, the health center, discovered that this lady was more than a month gone. She didn't know, I didn't know. So that attitude of, what's this Latin word, apatheia, of indifference. Because it's clear that if you are worried, particularly as a woman, it will be difficult for you to conceive. You know why? Because that worry will generate some biochemical substances in your system that will not enable any fetus to develop, even enable fertilization. Because your body is producing things unbeknown to you. That's why sometimes when couples who are finding it difficult to produce go to a competent gynecologist, after thorough examination and noticing that they don't have what is called the rhesus factor, there's this rhesus factor in the blood of a few human beings that makes it difficult for conception. The moment conception happens, that rhesus factor will see it, the immune system of somebody who has that rhesus factor will see it as a foreign body to be attacked, and the pregnancy will go off. Simple and short. So the point here is that people should know that if you are married, the marriage itself is valid, with or without children. Second, it is this continuity of lineage. I don't want my compound to close. See, what do you pass to your child? 23 chromosomes. After several generations, your chromosomes will remain, but it will be dispersed. Such that after 100 or 200 years, you cannot even identify. It will take serious genetic analysis that contemporary technology has made to even trace that your genetic imprint in that child. So what we need, a battery of things. One, on the medical side, yes. Two, blending the traditional, because there are some areas the traditional thing works. Take for example, this idea of a woman bringing a girl into the house, fantastic. And don't also forget, when we say science, Western science, I keep saying that that term has been abused. Because if you look at what is called Western science, it's not only the West that contributed to it. The foundation even came from Africa. When the ancient Greeks and others came to Africa to learn. So when I talk science, I talk about science, scientific method. I don't like, attaching it to a geographical, even though it's the common thing, even in literature. But who says that I must stick to what literature is saying if I have a valid point? Science is a creation of human beings from all over the world. But when you call it Western science, people feel alienated to it. No, scientific method is universal. Irrespective of the circumstance, the geographical location, where a particular practice, even the things we do I will not call it traditional, I will describe the method. If you want to now find out the locality in my village where it is, that's your problem. But it belongs to the corpus of human contribution to knowledge. So my point is, let's look at what can work for each individual. Whether you call it from the local or traditional part or from so-called Western science and technology, is irrelevant. The point is, if couples are really interested in having kids, they should have a recourse to effective methods of meeting that desire. But that must always be on the foundation of a mental reset. That this concept that having children is what validates, what makes marriage worth it, I think it has been over-exaggerated. And don't forget, please, part of it has to do with the historical situation in which human beings find themselves. It is not funny that we are still hankering over things that had validity 2,000 years ago, 1,000, even 200 years ago, when current situations and circumstances and developments have shown that those things are no longer as valid as they used to be in ancient times. So to finalize, the truth of the matter is that human beings should realize that this life is like a theater, it's like drama. Where somebody has said it, I've forgotten the name of that literary artist that said it, that the world is like a play. We are like actors in a stage. You play your part, you leave. Playing down your part and living does not necessarily entail reproduction. It does not. So that you give yourself unnecessary headache, homes have been destroyed. And funny, the problem was, most times in large cases, they blame the woman, not knowing that it's more or less 50-50. And sometimes if the man is the problem, and the woman who is the first wife goes and brings a second wife, the problem will continue, because the man is the issue. His sperm does not have motility. He cannot even fertilize an egg and all that. So the issue is that in each case, because you cannot have a general rule that will apply to everybody. Look at China. China had a one-child policy. After a while, they discovered that that policy is becoming retrogressive. They changed it and they said two. A time will come, China will abolish it too. What societies need to do is to give individuals the right information and let them make their choice. If an lady decides I don't want to have a baby till I die, that is my choice, and society must respect it. If Dr. Pascal wants to bring Pascal babes by having 12 children, that is his choice, but he must also live with the consequences of it. Feeding 12 children, especially this time around, you know. So the conclusion to all this is that infertility is a problem, but the significance of that problem has been over-exaggerated over time. And you can see, there was a time, some of the leaders of the prominent countries in Europe that are giving aid to African children were themselves childless. I'll give you an example. Does Emmanuel Macron have a child? The wife cannot. The wife is an old woman. She has gotten to menopause. Angela Merkel, who was German Chancellor, go and check it. A lot of those leading European countries or have led had no children. It did not mean that they did not spend money to take care of children in remote communities in Africa, which is that cosmopolitan adoption of children mentally that I talked about. Thank you.
This topic is really an interesting one, and I must say thank you to our professors on ground. I would love us to think critically about this. Not everybody will have a child, and we should learn to deal with that. No pressures from family members. Respect each person. If you can afford IVF and surrogacy, good luck to you. If you can do the traditional methods, fantastic. And if a couple choose not to have children, let us help them by staying away from their businesses. Thank you so much. I remain Adedotun Bakare. Bye.